Okay, mind if we do a clap quick?
Sure.
3, 2, 1. Thank you.
That's so we can sync up.
Okay. So, you said you listened to a few of the shows, so you kind of get the gist. If
Yes.
if Bollhagen points at you, we refer to them as last names, and you are Vicar.
Okay.
You don't get a last name until you're a pastor. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Sorry, not sorry.
You if you get pointed at by Bollhagen, usually he wants you to say, "Hey Peter, play the intro." Almost all the time.
Oh,
Okay.
and then his cheat sheet.
Yeah, where's the past Vicar leave a cheat sheet? There you go. At some point,
I see
Berg
it.
will say, "So where can they get a hold of us?" And you just have to read those off.
Okay.
P as in podcast. For the Twitter, he'll say @me_bro.
Recorded live at Talks and Tasting Studios, it's the Clerical Errors Podcast, the podcast that shows you what's behind the collar. Let's go.
From the Talks and Tasting Studios, this is the Clerical Errors Podcast, the show.
That shows you what's behind the collar.
I'm Bollhagen.
I'm Berg.
And I'm Vicar.
Yes, this is a new Vicar. So welcome.
Thank you.
18.0.
Thank you very much.
Which installment of the podcast is this? We started with Baldwin. You're the fourth Vicar on the podcast?
Yeah, I know. Don't you feel blessed?
Is that season 4 then, right? This is season 4?
Season 4?
I feel very blessed.
Wow.
I mean, we must have gotten most of the bugs out by this point, right?
to
make it a little bit easier for
Here's
them?
the thing. We're clerical errors. If we have all the bugs out, then we're not as good of a show.
That's true.
That's what makes it good.
It's like Windows 10. We just keep adding bad things back in, just so you can look forward to the new update.
Yeah. So we've done a top 12 get to know your vicar, but I don't necessarily. I already have a top 12 list,
Right.
so
We can.
just kind of pepper him with questions today. Just so what can we know about this updated Vicar app? Do you know why we call it a Vicar app?
Why is that?
Because the original was that 15.0. That was how we got him involved. Was he was kind of ready with the Google,
Yeah, he was like our Alexa,
right?
and so
Okay.
we would ask him questions, and then he would respond, or try to.
Right. So it'd be like, hey, Vicar, what's the, so you're the Vicar app. That's why we give you 18.0.
So I just shoot from the hip with an answer on those?
Yeah. Or if
Okay.
you're a fast Googler.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
So how do you feel about animal sounds?
Yeah. One Vicar was quite gifted at that.
I guess my daughters get a kick out of animal sounds from time to time.
It gives me hope. That gives me hope.
Yep.
All right.
Our listeners do too.
Are you a little nervous about this? Were you unsure about being, because I actually don't make the Vicar. I mean, there's kind of peer pressure, but I don't make the Vicar be a part of it.
No. Peer pressure is equals,
Oh, yes.
right? This is
Right.
top down.
This is Coach saying, yeah. These
It'd be really nice if
these
you really
summer
went to-
workouts are optional.
I would say a healthy nervous about it. I'm trying to be all in as a vicar.
And actually, I do think it's a learning process. Don't you think? Agree? You've seen the vicars be a part. It actually,
right.
it's a good part of their education, really, of speaking and public speaking, and because we've noticed that sometimes pastoral work now involves speaking into a microphone.
Yes. No, it's a fun show. We're glad you're a part of it. So it's going to be awesome.
And we go for, genuine talk, because people wonder what pastors think about.
That's different from real talk, which happens sometimes.
Right. So we were going to be unpolished a little bit, but that's kind of the point, really, because a lot of Christian podcasts are very polished, and portray a certain, that's not
Well,
us.
I feel like I was a listener first, so I get to see that, this helps show people that pastors are real people, too. So I think it's great.
And I brought a beverage today.
Yes.
All right, I'm kind of excited about this. So I'm going to put you get in your minds, okay?
It's a scary place to
All
be,
right. Yeah, I know. So, do you ever have you're really thirsty for a nice lemon lime soda?
All the time, actually.
Yeah, you a big lemon lime?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. How about you, Vicar?
Maybe a lemon beer, like a Leinenkugel.
A man after my own heart.
All right. A lime beer? Oh, like a Corona with a lime is not bad.
That's not bad.
A Blue Moon with an orange.
Sure.
I'm kind of, if I would drink beer, it'd be a Corona right now because Berg notices I am slowly evolving into a beach bum.
You are. I'm just waiting for the day when you leave a note. It says, I've gone to Florida.
I mean, I've got,
what would you call the pants that you're wearing right now?
okay, this is a really dated reference. Really dated reference. If you are over the age of 43, okay, I'll ask, do you remember Jams?
Well, none of us here are over the age of 43.
On MTV?
So
No. All right, Mr. Producer, if you could put on the screen here a picture of Jams. I think it might have been with his shorts.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Wow. I think they were still wearing those in the 90s too, weren't they?
I believe they were.
Holy cats.
Yeah, that really is what it is, isn't it?
That is loud and obnoxious.
Thank you.
Anyway, so you have an interesting attire. You're
Right.
turning
Vicar,
into a
one
beach
thing
bum.
you'll notice is and I've been open about this, I got a little ADHD in me. So sometimes the producer has to bring me back on track.
I was going to say, we're getting kind of far afield.
So, everyone likes a good lemon lime soda, right? But I thought I should do a public service because everyone goes, okay, well, which one do I want?
Oh, we're doing a taste test again?
We're doing a lemon lime taste test,
Ooh.
right?
Poor Peter. He never gets any of this cool stuff.
But he could, but I think because people they go to the convenience store. I really want me some lemon lime soda. I know you've been there, or probably for your case. Well, I've got a sick kid who needs some lemon lime soda, and I'm gonna buy too much. So which one should I get? Because I have to drink it.
That's what they do. I have a stomach ache. Can I try sipping some pop?
Right. So I have some different lemon lime sodas so that you, the listener, when you go to the convenience store and you're like, which one should I get? This is where we kick in and help. We call this a mercy project in our synod.
Ha! This is kind of on
get
the
any
same
funds
level as
allocated?
Comfort Dogs.
So I've got the drinks here, all right, and I need you gentlemen because I need to pour them, but it's got to be a blind taste test.
All right, I've got my eyes shut. So,
All right. I'm gonna pour number one.
While he's still going, Vicar, what's your macro brew of choice?
Would you consider Labatt Blue a macro beer at this point?
Seeing as I've never heard of it,
I've never heard of
No.
it either.
It's Canadian.
This is so seminarian.
Ah.
Like, okay, I'm gonna make fun of seminarians. Like a seminarian could never admit that there is a macro brew that he actually enjoys because his friends might be listening.
Well,
I mean, I just never drink, like...
in Go
ahead. Sorry, Vicar.
In college, I went to Michigan Tech, and my friends from Frankenmuth always had Busch
All right,
Light.
you open your eyes. By the way, here's number one. Number one.
All right. That doesn't taste like much anything.
Yeah, it's kind of doesn't taste real fresh.
It would pair nicely with some gin.
Hey, now we're talking.
Yes. So
Good work, Vicar.
Yes,
You're making a good impression.
take some notes.
What
Vicar.
kind of what?
You can. By the way, Vicar's closing his eyes while I drink it. I'm not sure what that's doing in a clear cup, but you do you, man.
It's good.
You like that one? Now you got to finish your cup so I can get ready for the next one here.
Yep, it was. It has kind of a metallic taste to it,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
Cardboard.
cardboard. Yeah, there's something wrong with it.
it tastes like a lemon lime soda that's been sitting in Grandma's fridge for a while.
Well, when I heard you open up the first one, and it just kind of went, I'm like, oh man, this isn't going to be that good.
Flat Sprite, maybe.
So, what kind of gin?
I don't have all the brands down. I just usually the free kind for me.
Yeah,
So
well,
when
see,
people
you're
offer it, I
also
like it.
You're also a prudent man, so I like that too. That's
All right,
good.
this is number 2. Close your eyes. Close your eyes.
So you were telling your story about Frankenmuth, your friends from Frankenmuth.
Okay.
Busch Light, you said?
That was their beer of choice, but again, it was free. You're right. I'm prudent. But my friends and I usually bought Beast Ice, Milwaukee's best ice, because it was cheap
That's right.
and high octane.
yeah, the 40 ounce. Living the dream.
Those or the 30 packs, which several of them fit in a hockey bag, by the way.
All right, you can open your eyes now. This is number 2.
Okay, this one smells fresher.
Does it smell fresher?
More bubbles, too.
Very different, actually.
Much more carbonated.
Much more carbonated. Yeah, this one would, I think, pair really well with gin, especially the kind of the sweetness on the top of the mouth.
A crisper.
It is, yeah. That's a good word.
So are we rating these like a 1 out of 5, or are you guys just putting one above another?
We'll rank them when we're done.
Rank them.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm like 2 is the second one is number 1 for me.
Yeah, the first one is like number 5 out of 3.
That bad, huh?
It's like getting third in a 2-man race.
Wait, how old were those cups? Maybe it was just dusty cups.
No, they were new. Okay. All right, you ready for number 3?
point.
For a second.
All right, close your eyes. Close your eyes. This is number 3. I'm kind of rooting for this one because this one kind of gets a bad rap.
So, Vicar, where are you from in Michigan?
From north of the Grand Rapids area, northwest of there, along the lakeshore.
Ah, very nice.
A little town called Allendale is where we lived.
All right, this is number 3. There you go, Vicar. That's more has a sweet. It's sweeter, definitely sweeter, less citrusy and more sweet.
I'm going 2-3-1.
2, 3, 1 so far. Number 2 just tastes more like a classic lemon lime soda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost like a little bit of a caramel taste in this one.
See, we just need a palate cleanser to really get the full.
Well, we only got one more left. All right.
I think this one was a little smoother.
You think that one's smoother?
Is that good or?
Yes. I think
Is
so.
that what you want from a soda?
Yes.
All right. Number 4.
So you, since you grew up near Grand Rapids, and they've got what, Calvin College there,
Yes.
right? So were there a lot of Calvinists in the area that you grew up knowing, or?
Yes, it's kind of a reformed area. So a lot of, especially from Allendale to Lake Michigan over in Holland, they have
All right.
the
We're good, by the way.
Dutch heritage.
You'll find that in some places in Iowa, like like Pella is really Dutch.
They got some of the best beaches in the Midwest out there.
Yeah, sandy beaches facing west, so you get the sunset.
All right. What do you think of this one, Berg?
It's good. I'm not sure where to put it in the rank.
All right. It's,
Right.
Is it better than the last one?
I would say I would put this as number 2.
Yeah, 2-4-3-1.
2, 4,
Yeah.
3, 3, 1 is what I got.
I would almost think this is that second one again. It's that close for me.
Yeah, that's where I'm not sure if it should be like close to number 1 or.
But
Yeah.
I do think number 2 is by far and away the best.
It'd be hard. Here, I want to try 2 again.
You want to try 2 again? All right.
And this is still better. Number 2 is still a little better than that one.
I think I agree. I think I would go 2-4-3-1.
All right, so number 1 was...
The first one we had was Fountain 7-Up
Found like from
from a soda fountain, which is why it wasn't quite as bubbly.
right, yeah.
Because I had gotten that 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago from
Quick Star.
Yeah.
So it was 7-Up, though?
Yeah, it was 7-Up. Okay.
And third place was number 3.
Number 3 was Sierra Mist.
That was your
Interesting.
underdog.
No, wait. All these numbers are confusing me.
The
Number
third one you did was the one you said got a bad rap and was the underdog.
Yes, that was Sierra Mist.
But I thought it was smooth.
Yes.
Yeah,
then
I
the
like
last
mine a
one-
little harsher, so
The last one you did was number 4. That was
Number 4 was 7-Up from a can.
okay.
And the second one you did, which you ranked the number 1 drink,
Sprite.
Okay.
So Sprite was the consensus number 1. So, listener, now you know. If there are any arguments about this, because sometimes the reason why you do this blind is, like we found out with a macro beer, that people will say, "Oh man, that's the worst one," just by whatever.
And if there are any Sprite, people listening, we would for sure do publicity for you.
So and we also kind of learned that maybe Sierra Mist might be okay for some, but really, if you want like the consensus best lemon lime soda, you got to go with Sprite.
Yeah, Berg, are we on the same page that we would definitely rename the podcast to Clerical Errors Podcast by Sprite? Like, I would do that, I think.
I would do, if they kept the money rolling in, I would.
Yeah.
Vicar, where could the Coca-Cola bottling company get a hold of us?
Well, they could email us at feedback@clericalerrors.org. They could find us on Facebook at facebook.com/clericalerrorspodcast or at Twitter at clericalerrorsp for podcast.
At me, bro. You look confused, Vicar. Are you all right?
I forget if I'm supposed to say something.
No, you're good.
Okay.
No. You're supposed to say gloriously awkward is what you're supposed to do.
And you succeeded. Good
job,
job.
man.
Man, we need to talk about what we're preaching on.
Yeah.
So, by the way, Hannah, I hope you're enjoying your breakfast with your aunts and uncles, and I hope all the left-handers survive.
Oh,
That's a joke
yeah.
for literally just Hannah, but
Yeah.
Yeah. What, are there a lot of left-handed people in her family?
I don't know. Yeah.
3 out of 8.
3 out of 8. Man, that's awesome.
Those are great odds.
Indeed. Never tell me the odds.
Yeah. We're working a little ahead, so we haven't really thought about our text yet, but we're gonna start thinking about it now. What is the text that we'll be talking about?
It's Mark chapter 7, 31 through 37, and that's the healing of a deaf and mute man.
Okay.
You want to read the whole thing or give us a summary?
How about I read it?
There we go.
Then Jesus left the
Vicar,
vicinity.
don't mess this up, okay? Say it like you mean it. Come on, let's go.
Okay.
Make sure you talk into your mic as well. Yep, there you go.
Then Jesus left the vicinity of Tyre and went through Sidon, down to the Sea of Galilee, and into the region of Decapolis. There some people brought to him a man who was deaf and could hardly talk, and they begged him to place his hands on the man. After he took him aside away from the crowd, Jesus put his fingers into the man's ears. Then he spit and touched the man's tongue. He looked up to heaven, and with a deep sigh said to him, Epaphatha, which means be opened. At this time the man's ears were opened, his tongue was loosened, and he began to speak plainly. Jesus commanded them not to tell anyone, but the more he did so, the more they kept talking about it. People were overwhelmed with amazement. He has done everything well, they said. He even makes the deaf hear and the mute speak.
All right. By the way, you know how the little quirkiness of Vickers bring me joy? Berg?
Yes.
That split second when it comes across a difficult word is one of those times.
Mm-hmm.
Like they know it's coming, and
you just hate it.
Why does that word have to be there?
Oh, you have to go listen to the episode. What is it? What was it? Prophesy or prosify?
Prosify.
Yeah.
Where there was a vicar during a church service.
A funeral.
A funeral. So just go listen to that one. Right. So it's awesome.
The text that used that word about 8 times. He got it wrong the first time, and he was trying to work out each time he pronounced it the correct pronunciation. Like he was slowly getting kind of closer, but then he'd do one and like, oh, that's not right, and then so he was doing that vicar pause before the word each time, and to control the laughter during a funeral from the supervisor, it was hard.
I believe it.
What are you preaching on that? You might have, sometimes you work ahead, Berg. Do you have your sermon worked out for this one?
I
yet?
don't, but I was just listening to the the first sentence here when he read it, and it's like, man, you could do a whole sermon off that first sentence, just all the places that Jesus is going. Mm-hmm. Like, for example, Tyre and Sidon. Back in the days of David, Tyre was a great ally. Mm-hmm. Hiram, the king of Tyre, actually provides all the cedar wood for the temple, and also during the days of Solomon, until they actually become a place of judgment and reproach during the time of Isaiah, for example. Mm-hmm. Sidon, Jezebel comes from Sidon, right? Mm-hmm. She's the one who introduces Baal worship into the northern kingdom. And so you have these two places that, that are just full of judgment, mm-hmm. right? That are bad places. And Jesus is actually walking and preaching and teaching there in these mm-hmm. places that no one would ever expect the Messiah to go. And then he not only goes to those two places, but then he goes to the Decapolis. And the Decapolis, what does that mean? If you break it up.
The city of 10?
10 cities,
10
right?
cities, yes.
Deca meaning 10 and polis meaning cities, right? So here he goes among the Greeks, right? Mm-hmm. These people who have never received the revelation of the prophets or anything like that before he gets to the Sea of Galilee. So it's fascinating how our Lord here is already prefiguring how he's going to send his gospel out into the very ends of the earth.
And it is amazing, too, when you think about that part of the world, which one reason why I think God chose that place and that time to send his son is you could walk, literally walk, and go to talk to the Greeks.
Right.
You could go to Tyre, you could go to Sidon, you could, all these different places being such a crossroads right there.
Right, and we forget about the value of places. And, having lived here now, this is my 9th year here in this area, I don't even remember, 17th, 18th, 19th?
I am just a few months from 20 years here.
Wow, thanks be to God. Places mean stuff, mm-hmm. right? When you hear Harbin Park or Skinny Patton's Corner.
Right. Yeah, right? It actually happened yesterday because we went to Valley Fair, and our youth leader told Vicar that we'll be turning at Skinny Patton's Corner. Do you remember that?
Yes, but
he just said that to confuse you.
I had no idea what he was talking about.
Right.
But like all of those places have meanings to us. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're good meanings, sometimes they're bad meanings. Well, it's the same way in the Bible, right? These are real places. These are places that you can visit. There are places that have a long-standing history with Israel, sometimes good, sometimes bad. And all of that plays in. Like, if we talk about Gettysburg, we all know what we're talking about, mm-hmm. right? And it's kind of the same thing here, is Jesus is going to these places, and most of us don't really know much about these places.
Yeah, to talk about Tyre and Sidon right now would be like me telling Vicar where's Skinny Patton's Corner.
Right, or like Middle Earth or some kind of nonsense, right?
Or Bertonia.
Yeah, Bertonia, right?
I miss him, man.
I know, I miss Bert too. We need to get him a microphone.
Yeah, Bert. I think maybe sometime before it's been a while. You need to be regrounded here at the studio.
It's the truth. Before school starts.
Yes.
So I was thinking that even the first verse.
That's a good point.
Could be a sermon all on its own. That here, like, these are some pretty terrible places. Mm-hmm. A lot of evil has come out of these places, and God speaks great judgment against a lot of these places. And yet our Lord goes here, and he preaches, and he teaches, and he sheds the light of the gospel on them.
And then not only that, is Jesus then heals this deaf mute in a very physical way.
Right. And what's interesting there is, that
was, because by the way, listener, just so in case you're worried, this was pre-COVID.
Ah.
So.
Badoom. Anyway. So, but what else is interesting about that? It's not just that he heals him in a physical way, which I think has a lot to do with Jesus communicating with the man on what he's going to do.
Right.
But this also, he takes him away from the crowd. Because unlike us, Jesus doesn't really care about numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because if Jesus cared about numbers and getting likes or retweeted or whatever,
Yeah.
he would have...
So he would not say at me, bro.
Probably not.
Okay.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Like, Jesus completely, you know, I mean, this would have been a great miracle for people to say, oh, yeah, he's going to, you know, look at how great Jesus is.
Kind of like how a healer nowadays who claims to be a healer, they do it so that they stage it so that everyone will, believe what's going on and what he says.
I was listening to a podcast, The Art of Manliness, one of their episodes on this kind of stuff, and it is like this sort of social media need, like this desire for recognition and all of this kind of stuff. It really drives a lot of what we do online. And Jesus isn't like that. Jesus cares about the truth. He wants, and this is why he commands him afterward not to go tell anybody about it. Mm-hmm. So that way this stuff wouldn't be misunderstood. And that he wouldn't be misunderstood simply as a healer.
This is because I have ADHD. It reminds me of something that is completely unrelated, but it's something I want to talk about.
Go for it.
That is, I watched a Netflix show, and it was about mushrooms. I figured I'm a fun guy. I should like this.
So, like the literal mushrooms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you hear me, Berg? I said, I'm a fun guy.
I know.
should like. Okay.
I heard you. I just chose to ignore it.
Okay.
I heard it.
So, and if you get a chance, I'd encourage you to, because I thought, I kind of like the nature shows, especially ones that incorporate the ocean and beaches and that kind of thing. But this was more about mushrooms, because I don't know much about mushrooms. And it had a lot of interesting things I didn't know about mushrooms. But then, like a typical Netflix show, okay, generally when you watch a nature show, it's like the first half is good, and then they talk about humans and global warming's ruining everything.
Oh, yeah.
It had a little bit of that, But it went in a really weird way of talking about, it talked about why penicillin came to be from that kind of thing. But then it talked about the really high point of it, and the writing of it was the psychedelic aspect.
Of course.
Right. And
not that you can sell mushrooms to, these restaurants for buku bucks.
Right.
They make you crazy.
And so they were talking about how they were giving the mushroom towards the end to people who are dying of cancer. And they said things like, after this session, what they do is you go into this room, they put headphones on you and make sure you're safe, and they give you the mushroom. And apparently you have some sort of experience, okay? Which I'm not suggesting we do on the show, although it would make a pretty amazing episode. I mean, Berg on a shroom would be...
Do you really want to lose control of your reason, though,
no,
man?
No. But I would like to see you do that. Peter, how much? I think we could raise a lot of money for the podcast. I digress. Man,
Patreon only episode.
Yeah. But so what they were doing is literally, if you want to talk about demonic stuff, the whole point was everything they said, the person who took the mushroom was the same kinds of things that we teach through the gospel, except there was no gospel. It was,
right.
I realized I was part of something bigger, and I no longer am afraid of death. They would even say things like, I really learned the true meaning of love and what it means to love someone. And just, it was like right down the line, everything that we do.
Only
Right. And they talk
only-
even eternity, where we would say, obviously, true eternal life. It would be, the understanding of the life cycle and blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. But it was everything that we would say when we bring the gospel to someone who's dying, that they hold on to as a believing Christian, that they find hope, by the way, without psychedelics.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, and also one of the great guy who, like the great mushroom scientist who's on there, he started out in
the great mushrooms. Is
Yeah.
this like Mario? Or is it Toadstool?
Princess Toadstool. No, it's he started out he grew up in a Pentecostal
Yeah.
environment where he started to see connection between what they were doing. And they even bring in how we need religious leaders who are kind of getting behind this because they see the value in it. And, I on the one hand, if there are some ways that it actually, I'm not all against like going out of way to losing your mind. I mean, people take all sorts of different medications for all sorts of different reasons. But when it gives someone, it says, oh, I'm no longer afraid of dying. I can accept it. I've learned to love. And that's all without Christ. That does a lot of damage.
Yeah, you should probably stay away from that.
Mm-hmm. And it was...
Well, and, I don't know, I think about this too with some of our members, where I know they have rules about things like morphine and that sort of thing, but boy, it's pretty hard in their last hours if you can't talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't actually be there and they are in such a deep medicated sleep that,
right. Where you actually... Sometimes I actually will text when they've had their last medication and
Right.
try and see them before they get their next dose so I can actually visit with them because it makes that much of a difference.
right.
But yeah, it was interesting to me, like, because I was just wanting to learn about, mushrooms. I don't know much about mushrooms.
Well, now you know a lot about mushrooms.
Right.
Do they grow by the beach?
No, not so much.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, I would say they grew everywhere.
Do you have pigs to help find them?
No, they didn't talk about that. See, I thought maybe they talk about some of the truffles and some of the wonderful
Yeah.
tasting. No, you know where we are. It's all about getting high now.
Yes, that is where we are as a society. Okay, Vicar, please save us from ourselves.
So, going back to the miracle here.
Do you have anything to add, Vicar?
Well, as you were talking about those locations, I was thinking how proud they would be to have seen Jesus, kind of that he stopped there in their town, and it's written in history. And then how Jesus was kind of going to the lost sheep of the house of Israel first, just like you said, his apostles would do, and how the gospel would spread, and then to the Gentiles. So I was just kind of taking that in, and that makes a lot of sense now.
One thing I think that we could, from a societal point of view, that we could say about this is right now there is a kind of a fractioning of true Christianity of people who think that Christianity is about, it's the white people's religion ultimately. And is really, when they think of, for example, I've heard that Christianity was something they imposed on African American and people, and how there's another actually something I saw where Native Americans, are seeking to maybe who have been Christianized go back to the religions that their forefathers gave them. To remember that really Christianity, because of texts like this that we see, historically the Christian church has been more African and Asian than it has been white.
Yeah. In fact, like Sweden wasn't converted until the 14th, 15th century.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there was a huge neo-pagan Renaissance in Norway and Sweden, and they actually burnt down a few stave churches back in the 90s, I believe. So
Yeah, and this is something that I can do with Berg as a podcast that no other podcast can do, because no other podcast has Berg. Is I can even say, okay, so Berg, for example, if you think of some of the church fathers of the church,
Okay.
early church, what kind of places did they come from?
Well, Tertullian came from North Africa. Let's see, a little bit later. Well, you have Ambrose, who's also in North Africa. You have, Cyril of Alexandria, which is in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
You have, let's see, who else? Athanasius is from Egypt. So I mean, really, there's a lot of North African, a lot of people actually in the East, which we would consider to be like the Balkans, modern day Turkey, and the like.
So from the beginning, white folks are late to the game.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of this is just so.
Not that I'm.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. It's actually they sent. It's funny because the slavery is such a big issue nowadays. One of the stories on why missionaries got sent to England was because in Rome they saw two Angles who were on the block for slavery, and so they were going to be sold. And one of the guys said, when the Pope asked, okay, who are these guys? Who are these blonde-haired, blue-eyed people? And they said, well, angels. And he said, they're more like angels. And so he sent them Anselm as a missionary. So,
So did you know that?
No.
Yeah,
That's
this
fascinating.
is where the vicar goes. Do all pastors know this much?
So yeah, I mean, so it's interesting. To say that this is a white man's actually, what in the book of Acts, you have the Ethiopian eunuch converting before
Right.
any sort of albino people like myself. So
The point is there it is really one. We're one people.
yeah, and that at the same time, I guess I would add that that doesn't take away from the distinctives of any of these nations. We have our own particular culture, and that includes both good and bad things. And every culture should be getting rid of the bad things and focusing on the good.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a lot of Mexican girls celebrate their quinceañera.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great tradition. Going to the cemetery on the Day of the Dead to eat and drink with their dead relatives, not such a good idea. And so that's the thing. It has more to do with the culture. What does a particular people believe, teach, and confess? And we can see this on a micro level in families. Certain families have certain traditions that they do at certain times of the year or before they eat or whatever.
We follow this in the Christian church too. When we have, we've always done it that way, is a reason to do certain traditions that may not always be so helpful.
Right, and even between our two congregations, they spring from the same source, and yet the traditions are different, and that's all right.
Right.
As long as these things are not militating against the gospel. And so,
anybody want any more Sprite or 7-Up or?
Yeah, pour me something. Pour me the really flat one, then I can just get rid of it with coffee.
All right, where'd that go?
But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that
You want anything?
Sure, surprise me.
Surprise
Anything.
you? Well, I'll give you the can so that I can close the lids of the other. That was number 2, so it won't be too bad.
Okay.
So yeah, because I think that's the other error we can fall into and just say, oh yeah, we're all one people, without recognizing any sort of distinctions.
Because that's what Christ does.
Christ, he receives people while he recognizes the distinctions within
Right.
them. That's why he has an inner circle. That's why Peter, James, and John go with him everywhere. Jesus sees the different distinctions in people, and he speaks the gospel to them in peculiar ways. Mm-hmm. And so that's the other thing is, we don't want to. Yes, we are all descended from Noah and from his children, and that's good. We are all of one blood, but that doesn't, just like my brothers and I are very, very different people, and that is then communicated to our families.
I remember when I was at your wedding, and I saw your brothers. Like, some of them don't look even related to you.
No, my cousins and I look more like siblings than my brothers and I do. And I
think you take more after your mom, and then your brothers take more after your dad.
Yeah, with differing, yeah. And then my brother Luke he has a lot darker skin, which he gets from my dad's mom. And then our different temperaments, and that is then reflected in our own families. Mm-hmm. And that's a good thing, right? So I guess that's my only point, is that we talk about all these things. We are one people, but at the same time, to recognize the differences in families, the differences in nations, mm-hmm. and to subject it all under the gospel. Mm-hmm. That the good things should be celebrated as coming from Christ, and the bad things should be pruned.
And Vicar is here as a reminder that even good things can come from Michigan.
This is true. I love Michigan.
I know.
People from Michigan really love Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for real, they really love Michigan.
It's
had kind of like the same way that my wife loves a rescue dog. It's kind of like...
It's a little damaged.
All right. I'm sorry, Peter, the producer. We are all over the place today.
Oh, yeah. Today is very different from normal in that you guys are all over the place this time.
By the way, Kat, congratulations on passing your CompScia network. What was it?
Yeah,
network?
Fred. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Passed another test. You got one more to go, or before, or what?
I'm not sure yet. We're working on it.
Someone needs a good IT guy. We got a well-qualified person
on the market.
Currently living on the market in the Kansas City area.
But he still needs time to produce our podcast, because otherwise this wouldn't go anywhere.
Yeah. All right, so I should get to my top 12 list.
Hey, Peter, play that intro.
Enough nonsense. It's time for Bollhagen's Top 12.
I like you had to take a look at your note real quick and make sure you said the right thing.
Yeah. That's what you tell. Oh, yeah, I've listened to the show. All right.
Top 12 list.
Top 12 list. So, do you know why it's a top 12 list, Vicar? Why I would choose 12?
It's quite a holy number.
Yeah, that's right.
Represents the church.
There we go. Yeah.
Well, what? How many disciples are there?
12.
Right. How many
apostles?
12 apostles, 12 disciples. What else? How many tribes of Israel?
12.
13. Because Joseph becomes 2 tribes, and Levi doesn't count.
That's why you're here.
But you're right.
By the way, that happened to a previous vicar, and Peter was setting you up for that.
Yeah, I was.
So, all right. So my top 12 list is, we've talked many times about how to talking to your pastor, right?
Yep.
And this is more geared towards, especially if you are, sometimes it's, whether it's you have a problem, you have an issue in your own conscience, confession, absolution. But also we've talked about is if there's something that maybe you're struggling with and you're having an issue with your pastor, which happens all the time.
Yep.
And so we say, rather than talk to everyone else about it, who should you talk to? Talk to your pastor.
Yep.
So this is a thing, though. People have trouble doing that, for whatever reason, and they don't know how to approach a pastor. Mm-hmm. So this is a top 12 list of top 12 ways of things that you can do that in approaching your pastor. And this is particularly if you have some questions or you're something's come up, which always happens in every relationship.
Number 12.
Depending upon what it is you need to talk about, schedule a time, give them a heads up of what it is you want to talk about.
Yeah.
So that it's because a lot of times someone might have an issue and they approach you at a time where there's really not much time to talk about it, or other people are around, and it's just you're not maybe in the right place to answer it correctly. So if it's something that you want to talk about, go ahead and schedule time, and then give the pastor a little heads up.
That's actually huge. I listened to another Art of Manliness podcast episode, and they said that too, is that, if you tell somebody we need to talk, that immediately puts you on the defensive. Mm-hmm. And so to give them that idea of, okay, this is what we're going to talk about, it kind of diffuses the situation.
Right. And my point is too, in this is you want to have resolution to whatever issue it is.
Right.
And it could be a whole host of things.
Number 11.
Talk to your pastor before you get really emotionally involved. And he should be the first one you talk to.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I put it this way is you could say something kind of bothers you and you need a little clarification. If you don't talk about it later, what happens is it grows on you.
Yep.
And maybe the pastor's doing something that's bothering that he has no idea about that he could address.
Right.
And so what happens is all of a sudden the kind of growing resentment or anger can come out, and all of a sudden, boom, like a ton of bricks, and the pastor has no idea where this came from.
Yeah, I listened to one pastor at the Bollhagen conference. He was talking about this, and I can't remember exactly how it went, but this lady was mad at him for something, and she just blew up at him. And really, it was the root of the issue was a year ago. She was teaching the kids that Santa Claus was real in the church, and he's like, well, we should probably be teaching them something that's actually real, like Jesus.
Good point.
So
Taking notes, Vicar?
Yeah, that reminds me. My wife and I got in trouble for our oldest, telling her friend that Santa wasn't real, and the friend's parents were mad at us for it.
Yeah, Peter was that guy. Right, and so she got really angry at him then.
yeah, so really, the root of the issue was this other thing that had never been addressed. Mm-hmm. And then it was this other issue that just kind of sparked the fire.
Right.
And turned it into something bigger than what it actually should have been.
Right. And also the reason why I say the first one is because there's a tendency and it's a natural tendency, I think, that we have to fight against, is to kind of build up sides. This is pastor, because a lot of times when someone finally comes up, it feels like there's a group of people behind him.
Right.
Which is not helpful. But if you talk about it early, and by the way, in this list, there is an implicit too, pastor's ear, some things you can do to help people talk with you as well.
Right.
Because we have pastor and lady listening to this podcast. But
Luther actually has a really great thing in this on the 8th commandment in the Large Catechism, which you should all go and listen to. But he's really sarcastic in it, which is great. He's like, we all have this wonderful tendency where, we have to be proven right and everybody else has to be put down. Mm-hmm. And that's what that natural tendency does. It's to tell your side of the story so that way you're right. This is all self-justification.
Right.
Is really what it comes down to. And if you don't think self-justification happens, you'd be wrong, because it happens all the time. Like, all the time.
And if it's something that you want genuine resolution to.
Right.
If it's something where you generally want to bring healing, then.
And we all make excuses. Oh, well, I needed to check with so-and-so or my family to do, to see if this is something I should actually bring to the pastor, or, I had a question and then they answered it and blah, blah, blah. Still, if your issue is with the pastor, you need to go to the pastor. Mm-hmm. That's where you need to go. No more excuses.
Number 10.
And this is one that happens all the time too. Don't try to read the pastor's mind and question his motives. This is one thing that, in the 20-some years, in helping, because I'm kind of a peacemaker.
You are. That is your gift.
And the biggest thing that I do to help people when they're not getting along in this kind of situation is to say, you're questioning. You think, well, he just wants to do this or he just wants to do that, and they're not good motives. And I say, no, actually, your pastor really cares about you, and he's trying to do what's best for you and the congregation according to the Word of God. And
this is the 8th commandment, right? Mm-hmm. You can't see his mind. You can't see his heart. You can only look at what he says and what he does. And so if you are going to put motives on that, then you need to...
And generally those motives are wrong.
Put the best construction on it, right?
Right. Right. So...
Like you would want done to you.
Mm-hmm. Right. And by the way, this also goes the other direction.
Right.
Because sometimes the pastor can feel, well, they just want me out of here, or they just want this or that.
Yeah, you can't go into it with a siege mentality.
Right.
I was going to say, too, I know a pastor that chose to preach Matthew 18 once a year, a brother who sins against you, and kind of implement that as a church policy for conflict resolution, and ask everybody that comes to him, did you do the first step already, and talk to that person? What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, I think that's a magnificent idea. I think every elder and every pastor, that should be the first thing they ask. Well, did you go and talk to so-and-so about it? Oh, you didn't? Then
right.
You're sinning.
Because
Repent.
What happens, too, is sometimes there's a misunderstanding of what the elders are there to do.
Right.
Like your elder's supposed to be always kind of the go-between. So you don't have the guts to talk to the pastor about it, or you're uneasy talking to the pastor.
Yeah, they're not the board of control, and the pastor is not the CEO. That's not how this works. This isn't like a corporation.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, trying to read the pastor's mind, and question his motives, when it comes down to it, everyone generally does want the same thing.
Yeah, I mean,
but
hopefully everybody wants, the Word of God to reign supreme in the hearts and minds of men.
Number 9.
It is helpful for a pastor to know that his actions and words are being misunderstood. So explain how you heard it and give the pastor an opportunity to clarify.
Yep.
It's kind of like the number 10 of question his motives. That can also be if you didn't understand something, or I can't believe the pastor insinuated this or that, and Whitty didn't, and they think, well, pastor was trying to say this or that when he wasn't. If you generally trust in the benevolence of the pastor, and if you didn't understand something, to give him the opportunity to clarify in a nice, kind way.
Right.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant.
Or, how about just saying, hey, I didn't understand this. You seem to say this, but because you're a Christian, I know you don't say this. Can you explain this further?
Right.
I mean, it's not that difficult to act like an adult.
And so when you're doing this too, is to bear in mind that the pastor may not always realize that he's being misunderstood.
Right.
And that's really helpful for a pastor. It's really helpful for a vicar, for example, when someone says, "Thank you for the sermon, vicar. I really took to heart la da 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 da," when you didn't really mean them da 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 in your sermon, which happens sometimes. It's kind of funny. But to have a chance just to clarify and understand where it's coming from, rather than just get angry.
Mm-hmm.
Number 8.
Number 8 is make it a goal to leave the conversation with more understanding and leaving the pastor more uplifted and supported.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what pastors try to do too with you. Yeah,
I mean, if all you do is beat him down, he's probably not going to want to be your pastor for a long time. I mean, honestly, isn't that, I mean, we talked about the ordination vows and stuff. I mean, it's of no benefit to you if your pastor feels like crap.
Mm-hmm.
If he hates what he does, if he dreads answering the phone, if going to visit certain congregation members makes him feel physically ill, do you think he's going to be that effective of a pastor? Probably not.
So make it a goal to when you do have this conversation, the goal isn't to I'm going to make my point.
Right. Or, be corny and use a compliment sandwich.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Tell him something good, then have your critique, and then tell him something good. Like, this isn't that hard. We all learned how to do this.
You learned something?
Yes, I am.
Because you're a little older for not you're second career, so you do have experience on both sides of this a little bit.
In different ways, yes, with coworkers and staff members, kind of playing the middleman.
Right, because you've been a church member, but you're also a pastor's son too.
Yes.
So you understand kind of both sides. But it also helps the pastor if there is an issue. It helps him to know that he feels supported, even if there's disagreement.
Right.
That's always a good thing. That always will serve well.
Number 7.
Kind of mentioned this a little bit before, but remember, you are both, or you should be, on the same side.
Yep.
And the reason why I wanted to put it that way is people really come to church conflict or conflict with a pastor is there being sides. And I would say there definitely are sides, and we see it all the time. There are sides between those who want to destroy the church and the gospel from outside the church, and those within the brotherhood of Christ. When we think of our fellow brothers and sisters and the pastor as being on this side or that side, I mean, we're seeing very clearly there is the side of darkness. And to say that there are sides really then opens a door for the true wickedness of our world to enter into the church, because you're not recognizing who the true enemy is.
Mm-hmm. 1 Corinthians 1, factionalism is a sin.
Right. The heart of the gospel is real unity, and not man-made unity. It's unity in the body and blood of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is why Paul also talks about, bringing divisions to the table,
mm-hmm.
and how that should not be so. Because when you take the Lord's Supper together, you're making a confession that you are, in a sense, using the words that are often used on the same side.
Well, that's why it's called communion, fellowship. Mm-hmm. Not just with you and Jesus, but with everyone else who's there. Which is why we have close communion.
And so remembering that you both are, or at least should be, on the same side, mm-hmm. rather than whatever issue. Remember that when you're talking to the pastor, without going overboard and questioning the motives and what he's really trying to do and all those things.
Number 6.
Know that your pastor may not bring about the precise change that you desire, but that doesn't mean he did not listen to you or that he doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does happen sometimes where, pastor doesn't do exactly what you asked him to do or wanted to do, and so your reaction could be, well, he didn't listen to me, or he doesn't care.
I've got a buddy who, at a funeral, the son wanted to play Highway to Hell as they were bringing the body out to the cemetery.
Vicar, don't do that, okay? All right.
So that's always what I think about when it's like not getting in the precise change that you might want. It's like, because sometimes those changes don't reflect the gospel. Now that one is pretty obvious on how it does. I don't care if it was his favorite song. Like, Highway to Hell is not appropriate for
a funeral.
Right. Or Mark of the Beast, or The Beast and the Harlot, okay? Probably anything by Avenged Sevenfold or, Iron Maiden probably doesn't work.
What about Stairway to Heaven?
Oh.
Well, anything by Megadeth, that's got a pastor, right?
Yeah. Well, Megadeth, I mean, that fits with, like, it could be a mega funeral then, right?
So what's your music of choice, Vicar?
It used to be country, but I'll be honest, with the girls growing up here, most recently we just try to play more Christian music and keep it clean. But they like it when their mom puts her favorites back on for a little bit, 80s, 90s, 2000s, things like that. So I'm kind of neutral. I'm just the driver, I think.
I saw a little meme on Facebook, or I don't know if it's a meme or not. It was something that someone had written. I don't understand all the language, Peter. I'm sorry. And it said, pop music with a southern accent is not
A southern
country.
twang. Yeah, a southern twang isn't country. And that's about right. Give me some good 90s country, and that's pretty good.
But the point is, it's kind of like, too, sometimes you go to the doctor, for example, and you think, well, I need this kind of medicine. And so you think, well, the doctor should just prescribe this for me. And the doctor might say, well, actually, that's not going to be the best thing for you.
Yeah.
You might be tempted to think, well, the doctor didn't listen to me, doesn't understand my concern.
Oh, he does. And he's just as annoyed because all of those drugs are being played as commercials. You know, we're one of only 2 nations on Earth where the pharmaceutical companies can actually have commercials for their drugs.
They don't have to do that anymore. The government's doing it for them. So, anyways, so just because I want to, listener, a lot of times he is listening, but he still is trying to, he's got a lot of things to think about. And
he has to be faithful to what he's been called to do. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what he's been called to do and your wants don't line up.
And even if it's something where, too, it's something where maybe he has certain things that he does that has nothing to do with the actual ministry or the Word of God or something that is off-putting.
Yeah, like he combs his hair the wrong way.
Right. Well, so does it matter or not? Also, maybe, he desires to change some of those things, but it's hard.
Right. And maybe he doesn't like your hairdo either. You ever think about that, listener?
All right.
Number 5.
Listen, be willing to learn and grow, and to understand with an honest heart.
I got nothing to say to that. That's good.
I think that's good advice for husbands, too.
Yep.
And that's also good for the pastor.
Yep.
As well. We no one's a finished product, right?
Not until they're dead.
And there can be a tendency for a pastor to also be defensive, and to not say, maybe you're right.
Yep.
But a pastor to say, okay, I'm willing to learn and grow, and the pastors can certainly enter in that kind of situation with the same attitude.
Number 4.
Remember, every Sunday, your pastor forgives your sins.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I say that, Vicar?
Because it's true, and whatever you're revealing to him, it can be forgiven. It will be.
I think that the reason why I also say that is if you're
How mad can you be at a guy who gives you eternal life every week? I mean, really, it's kind of like your folks putting the meal on the table. Yeah, you might not be very happy with them, but
Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah, I mean, it's
right, and the reason I want to say that too is we as pastors make mistakes, and we are always geared towards forgiving. Right, there's nothing that we want to do more, regardless of what someone's done, than just to say that your sins are forgiven, that everything is right between. That's why we became pastors. Is we love the forgiveness of sins. We want people to know that they're forgiven and having that freedom.
Why it wasn't for the fame and the money and the women?
Nope.
Okay.
Well, it is for some, but
Are you gonna name names or?
no.
Come on.
But because we as pastors are always in the mind frame of forgiving,
Mm-hmm.
in dealing with people with grace and mercy, it's also good for the pastor to receive that same kind of grace and mercy from the people in the pews.
Yep.
rather than holding on to anger or resentment and all those things, to treat him like a brother that you want clarification for your own sake as well. Maybe that you want, maybe if he's doing something that can be sometimes off-putting that he's not aware of, to have a place where you can actually talk about it and help each other. But remembering he's there because he desires you to be forgiven more than really anything else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he became a pastor. Should change maybe and help you reflect as you talk to your pastor about whatever might be bothering you.
Number 3.
Don't put the pastor on the defense. Talk to him about your experience and your understanding. There is a big difference between why did you do this, then please help me understand.
Yes. Once again, like, didn't we all learn this? I mean, really, didn't we all learn this? Like, rather than saying, well, you did this, you say, don't you do like the I statements, like, you know, I feel this way, and that, right? Right? Mm-hmm. Didn't we learn all this?
Yeah, but
at some point.
But I would say, you know, when dealing with grace too,
yeah,
is there can be some long established habits in a congregation that could go 50 years back,
mm-hmm.
where people were raised, this is how we talk about things.
Yeah.
And so people could be raised to deal with that in a certain way and all sorts of other things, but then they grew up complaining about Sunday in the car on the way home.
Right.
So
or like one congregation I've heard of where one of them decked a pastor like 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
That's a great precedent to set.
So there's a difference between why did you do this, then please help me understand.
Mm-hmm.
Because the goal is different. The why did you do that?
It's accusatory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and there's a difference between also, like we said, one by one, please help me understand, or
yep.
something that's bothered you for a long time the pastor doesn't know about, so let me bring it up at a voters meeting. You know, there's a difference. So, and I know, by the way, me bringing this list to the listener, I don't want you to think that I have all sorts of things in mind or instances in mind
mm-hmm.
or things that happened to me. I'm just going with my talk with, I talk to a lot of pastors and a lot of people from a
yep.
lot of congregations. And these are just general things that will be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2.
Evaluate the validity of your point of conflict and its importance. Don't bombard the pastor with drip torture.
What do you mean by that?
Okay. There could be a lot of little things that, on the grand scheme of things, don't really matter. Or so,
mm-hmm.
you know, and you little things that don't really matter. And so, yeah, I just really want to talk to you about this, Pastor. I noticed it's how can I say this? You left your light on in your office last night when you went home. And then next week, yeah, Pastor, I don't know if you knew this, but your shoes weren't tied. Pastor,
or you didn't shine your shoes. You didn't shine your shoes before
right.
communion.
Where, you know
what I'm talking about.
Yes. Watching with my dad growing up, you see these things.
Right. And so
you're in the fishbowl.
Right. And so if there's genuine concerns that you have, talk about it. And let's say the pastor left the light on. Maybe he doesn't realize he does it. Okay. So
get him
it doesn't have to be a thing.
Yeah, get him a clapper.
Right.
Then he can just leave the office and go.
Right.
And it's done.
Right. So yeah, it doesn't have to. If it's a big thing that needs to be talked about, yes, But if it's like if you're annoyed and all these little things are bothering you, and you just one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other, then it becomes kind of like drip torture, where once it doesn't bother you, twice it doesn't bother you, after the 50th drip.
Yeah, then it's kind of a problem. And once again, this is like This is the golden rule, right? I mean, I went to an elementary school where that was on the wall. Okay, this was a public school. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? And it's like, okay, guys, how about you put yourselves in that position? Is that what you know? Hey, so and so, I hate the way your hair looks. It makes you look like a butch. Or, boy, your dress is really out of date. Or I see you didn't park exactly in the slots at church. Or, hey, you didn't pick up your mail at the mailbox right away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just like, come on, you guys, would you want to hear complaints like that all the time? No. So just put yourselves in someone else's moccasins, as they say.
And that brings us to number 1.
And number 1.
Be willing to forgive and to be forgiven. And I think both are important.
I think the Bible talks about something like that.
Yes. Because we really, as a church, we are the best prepared to deal with these. We should be.
Should be.
Right?
So.
What'd you think of the list? Am I missing anything?
Nope. Sounds good.
And like I said, it's words that could be helpful for both pastor and laity to think of these things, because we're sinners too.
Yep.
So, Vicar, did you learn anything?
I did.
What did you learn?
How to think about it as a pastor and help people to appreciate that we're people too. So.
All right. I think that brings us to the end of our show. Wonderful show. But,
You can
I
do
think
it.
we're going to end it, right?
You can do it.
You can do it. You can
Come
do
on.
it.
okay. I'm Bollhagen.
I'm Berg.
And I'm Vicar. And may your sodas be smooth and crisp.
Thank you for joining us. This podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever else you get your podcasts. Questions, thoughts, concerns? You can contact us on Facebook at facebook.com/Clerical Errors Podcast, on Twitter at Clerical Errors P for podcast, or email us at feedback@clericalerrors.org. Thanks for listening to Clerical Errors. See you next time.